I still remember that night like it happened yesterday. Cold wind, empty street, and a fear that crawled up my spine long before I understood what danger I was in. I was coming back from a late closing shift at the cafe, exhausted, numb, and barely paying attention. My apartment building was only a block away, and usually that walk felt safe. But something felt wrong that night. I kept hearing footsteps behind me. Slow, steady, matching my pace. I walked faster. So did he. I crossed the street. He crossed too. By the time I turned the final corner toward my building, my heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I wasn't the paranoid type, but every instinct screamed that I wasn't alone. And I wasn't. I saw the shadow first, long, distorted under the flickering streetlight. Then the figure stepped into the dim glow. Hoodie up, hands in pockets, following me. I froze for half a second, debating if I should run, yell, or pretend I didn't notice. Before I could decide, the man behind me spoke. "Hey, you dropped something." His voice was deep, calm, too calm. I didn't drop anything, and that's when I knew something was very, very wrong. I stepped backward, ready to bolt. My keys slipped from my hand and clattered on the sidewalk. I bent to grab them, but he stepped closer, too close, blocking the light, blocking my way out. "Don't touch me," I whispered. He smirked. "You think I want to?" Before I could react, he reached toward my arm. And then, a hand appeared from behind me and grabbed his wrist with unbelievable force. She said, "Don't touch her." The voice was different, firm, cold. I spun around and saw him. My neighbor. The guy I'd seen only once in the hallway. Tall, dark hair, serious eyes, and a face that didn't smile. I didn't know his name. He never spoke to anyone. People in the building called him rude, arrogant, even dangerous. But right now, he was the only thing standing between me and the man who looked like he wanted to hurt me. The stranger tried to yank his arm free, but my neighbor tightened his grip until the man hissed in pain. "Walk away," he warned. His voice wasn't loud, just controlled. Too controlled. For a moment, no one moved. The night held its breath. Then the stranger muttered something and stumbled back before turning and running down the street. I stood frozen. My neighbor let his arm drop and looked at me, expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, even though my whole body shook. He bent and picked up my keys. "You shouldn't walk alone this late," he said, handing them to me. And that was the first time I looked closely at him. Not just glanced. Looked. He had this stormy, guarded energy. Like he carried 1,000 secrets. Like he stayed away from people because getting close was dangerous for them or for him. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't answer. He just nodded once and turned to leave. "Wait," I said. "Who are you?" He paused for a second, then shook his head. "Doesn't matter." He walked away, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there. But he was there, and because of him I was alive. That night changed everything for me. Not because he saved me, but because I realized something. I trusted him without even knowing his name. And that scared me more than anything. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man who followed me and the stranger who saved me. My neighbor. My mysterious, silent, closed-off neighbor who spoke to no one, stayed up late, and walked like he carried the weight of a whole different life on his shoulders. I replayed everything he said. Everything he didn't say. The next morning, I made coffee just to have something warm in my shaking hands. I hadn't realized how much the fear was still clinging to me until I stepped into the hallway and almost jumped at a sound behind me. But it wasn't danger. It was him. He stood by his door, locking it. Same dark jacket. Same expressionless face. But the moment he saw me, he stopped. Just a fraction of a second. Just enough for me to notice. "You headed out?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, trying to sound normal. "Take a rideshare. Don't walk." His tone wasn't bossy, just protective. "Are you always like this?" I asked. "Saving random girls in the middle of the night?" His jaw tightened slightly. "You're not a random girl." That made my heart stutter. "What does that mean?" He avoided my eyes. "It means, I saw the guy before you did. And you needed help." "That's not what you said." He exhaled sharply. "Just don't walk alone after dark. Please." There it was. The slip. The thing he tried to hide. He cared. Not loudly. Not softly, just silently. As I took the elevator down, I realized something crazy. I wanted to know more about him. Not because he saved me. Not because he was mysterious. But because something about him felt like a barrier protecting something fragile inside. People called him dangerous, unfriendly, a loner. But I had seen him risk himself for me, a stranger. That wasn't danger. That was loyalty, the purest kind. Later that week, I finally knocked on his door. My heart hammered like I was confessing something. He opened the door just enough to see me. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes. I wanted to thank you properly. And maybe know your name." He hesitated. Then, "It's Ethan." Ethan. It suited him. Strong, quiet. "And yours?" he asked. "Lena." I expected him to close the door. Instead, he opened it wider, enough for me to see his apartment almost empty, just essentials, no decoration, like he never planned to stay long. "Why does your place look like you're moving out?" I asked jokingly. He froze. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something like pain. "Because I might be," he said quietly. "Why?" He shook his head. "Lena, I think you should stay away from me." My stomach dropped. "Why would you say that?" He looked away. "Because I'm not who people think I am." "What does that even mean?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. "You deserve safe people around you." "I'm not that." "You saved me," I said. "That feels pretty safe." "That was a mistake," he whispered. "No, Ethan," I said, stepping closer. "It wasn't." He looked at me, then really looked, and something in him broke. Not visibly, just internally, like a crack running through an old wall. "Please," he said softly. "Don't get involved with me." But it was too late. Because the night he saved me was the night I stopped being afraid of him and started being afraid of losing him. Days passed, and the neighborhood gossip started crawling back into my ears. I had lived in this apartment complex for almost 2 years, but I'd never heard Ethan's name, not even once. People whispered about him without knowing anything real. "He's dangerous. He hides something. Don't talk to him. He's not normal. Stays up all night, leaves before sunrise." The more they warned me, the more confused I felt. Because I had met him, not the version they imagined, but the real one. Quiet, yes. Distant, absolutely. But dangerous, no. If anything, he looked like a man trying not to be a burden on anyone. But people judge silence more than they judge mistakes. One evening, I was grabbing my mail when Mrs. Patton, the older lady from 3rd floor, whispered, "Honey, stay away from that neighbor of yours. He's trouble." "Why do you say that?" I gently asked. She lowered her voice. "Because he's always watching, always listening. Men like that, they snap." I wanted to laugh, not out of disrespect, but because they were talking about the same man who pulled me away from real danger. The same man who handed me my keys with shaking hands, like he was the nervous one. The same man who told me to stay safe. But I didn't argue. There was no point. People believed what they wanted to believe. Later that night, I went to take the trash out. The hallway was quiet, lights soft and dim. As I walked back to my apartment, I saw Ethan sitting on the floor outside his door, back against the wall, eyes closed as if fighting sleep. "You okay?" I asked, stepping closer. He opened his eyes slowly. "Yeah, just tired." "You don't look tired. You look worn out." He gave a tiny smile, the first real smile I'd seen. "That's accurate." I sat beside him without asking. He didn't move or question it. For a full minute, we just breathed in silence. "You know people talk about you," I finally said. "I know. They say things that aren't true." He nodded calmly. "People always fear what they don't understand." I looked at him carefully. "Does it bother you?" He thought for a moment. "Not anymore." I stopped expecting kindness from people a long time ago. That sentence, it hurt me more than I expected. "Ethan, why do you live like you're hiding?" "Maybe because I am." "From what?" He closed his eyes again. "From the past." He didn't explain further, and I didn't push. There was something about him, something fragile, that made me want to protect him the way he protected me. The day everything changed again was when the fire alarm went off. Loud, piercing, terrifying. I was in the shower when the apartment suddenly filled with the sound of chaos. I grabbed a towel, dripping wet, and rushed out, but thick smoke filled the hallway. Something was burning on the floor above. I panicked. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. Lena. I heard his voice before I saw him. Then strong arms wrapped around me, pulling me into the stairwell, away from the smoke. He shielded me with his jacket, coughing but keeping me close. We ran down the stairs together until the cold night air hit our lungs. People stood outside in confusion. Some crying, some scared, some staring at Ethan as if he started the fire himself. But the truth was simple. Everyone warned me about him. And yet he was the only one who came back inside to look for me. When the firefighters arrived, Ethan made sure I sat down, his hands trembling as he checked if I was okay. "You always show up," I whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because sometimes silence tells the whole story. The fire was controlled within an hour. Thankfully no one was injured, though half the building had to be evacuated for the night. People gathered outside like a small crowd, talking loudly, blaming anyone they could think of. "That neighbor of yours, he was inside. Suspicious. He always causes problems. He was probably involved." I felt anger burn inside me. How could they be so blind? He had literally saved me twice. Twice. But no one cared about truth, they cared about assumptions. Ethan walked a few steps away from the crowd, isolating himself like he always did. He stood near a street lamp, hands in pockets, eyes lowered, as if preparing for the blame he didn't deserve. I went to him. "You should yell at them," I said. He shook his head. "What would be the point? To defend yourself. I don't need to. I know what I did." He said it so simply, like saving someone was just another Tuesday for him. "You could have died," I whispered. He looked at me then, really looked. "So could you." We stood there, just breathing in the cold night, the air heavy with smoke and unspoken feelings. "Why do you always help me?" I asked softly. He didn't answer for a long time. His eyes drifted toward the building, the burning lights, the panicked neighbors. Then he said, "Because I know what it feels like when no one helps you." That sentence broke me, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a crack forming inside my heart. "What happened to you, Ethan?" He shook his head. "Some things aren't worth retelling. But they shaped you." "Yes," he admitted. "But I don't want them to shape you." For a moment, I didn't understand what he meant. Then it clicked. He didn't save me because he was brave. He saved me because he didn't want anyone else to feel abandoned the way he once did. I stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his arm. He stiffened for a second, not out of discomfort, but out of unfamiliarity. Like no one had touched him with kindness in years. "You're a good person, Ethan," I whispered. He laughed softly. "No, just a person who tries. And maybe that's what goodness really is." Later that night, after the chaos settled, I found him sitting alone on the curb, staring at the ground like he was lost in 1,000 memories. I sat beside him. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. Sometimes the most real connections happen without a single word. Before going home, he said one last thing. "Lena, don't listen to what people say about me. Listen to what you've seen." And I realized, I had seen more truth in him than in all the people who judged him. Beautiful moral lesson. Never judge a person by what others say about them. Characters louder than rumors are built in moments of courage and kindness. Sometimes the people we fear are the ones who show up when everyone else stays away.